Rebonjour. I am going to wait a couple of minutes for our friends to find us. This was a bit of a Catherine is back. Thanks, Catherine. Yes, it's been a challenging day, but we're not going to give up now, are we? Well, I have moved, I have changed locations, but I am still in the beautiful city of Blois. And what we see here in the background are the flying buttresses of another beautiful church in town, which is Saint Nicholas. We're not going to get any closer. It's being renovated right now. Bonjour, Hélène. Welcome, friends. So we're not going to get closer to Saint Nicholas because I have other plans for us. This is as much as you will see, there's a giant scaffolding in the front, so it's not looking at its best right now, but just to get the feel of the old medieval sections of the beautiful city of Blois, we are along the Rue des Trois Marchands, the street of the three merchants right now. You can see some half-timbered homes down there, and there are some small town vibes definitely in this section. We are going to follow this street, which is the Rue Saint Lubin, Lubin, in a few seconds. And I just wanted you to get a feel for the size of the Chateau De Blue, once a royal residence. We will talk about it. On the left-hand side there is one of the wings of the chateau. We'll discuss that a little later, but you can see how tall and picture what the walls must have looked like in the Middle Ages. The walls that encircled some of this area, sorry. So let's get going along, for those of you following online, Rue Saint Lubin. It's a very nice little town. Now keep in mind we are outside Paris, and this means that on a Sunday, things are pretty quiet. Restaurants and cafes are open, some of them, not all. But a lot of the shops are closed, and this is pretty much what life in La Provence, which is everything outside Paris, is like on a Sunday. I must say it's quite lively and quite lovely to be, even if it's not lively, actually. There's a statue they protected here on the wall. So we are in a neighborhood dedicated to the arts. That's actually the name of the neighborhood. I like how some of the shops have kept those signs that remind us of medieval shop signs. And you can see in the middle of the street this ditch where, as we know, back in the Middle Ages, they would just toss whatever they didn't want in the house, liquid stuff in particular, no need to elaborate, from those windows, and it would land right in the middle of the street here in this hollow section, or shallow, I don't know what the word is. Brocante. So we have a few brocantes here, antique shops, a couple of bars that are closed. Welcome if you just joined us. This is Véro, for another stroll in the beautiful city of Blois, in the heart of the Loire Valley. As towns go in this part of the country, this is a pretty big one. About 45,000 people live in the city of Blois, so it's significantly larger than Amboise, where we were last week. See those beautiful homes? And if you keep going to the end of the street over there, you probably see it, this is the Loire River. I popped up on Facebook earlier, had to fight with Facebook a little bit, to show you the beautiful rose gardens that sit way up high on top of the city. This is a relieur, a bookbinder. So you have quite a few interesting boutiques. And it's a good thing this one is closed, because it says that this lady sells high quality jewelry, costume jewelry, and some of it is really pretty. So it might be for the best that it's closed, actually. Well, you got to have your hipster business or hipster boutique. This is a barber. And yep, even in historic Blois, in the heart of town, you do have your hipster boutique. Look at these. They have interesting names too. I don't know if you can read them. More antiques. So Blois is a great home base if you explore the Loire Valley. Bonjour, bonjour, welcome, thank you for joining. If you want to see Chambord or Cheverny, Blois makes a really good home base. The city itself is great. It has a beautiful chateau, restaurants and shops. We will explore more of that area you see over there. But for now, what I'd like to do is get us closer to the chateau. And because it's very hot today, I'm going to take the shorter stairs, which, as you will see, are still pretty high. So they call them degrés, like degrees, degrés, and this means stairs. So these take us to the chateau, clearly. I'm gonna probably pull down my mask to go up this. Look how pretty this is. All right, if you're ready, we're gonna go up to the chateau. It's not the best way to arrive at the chateau. There's a better view, but because the sun's facing us, I figure this is probably just fine. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. I would have heard it. You would have told me otherwise, I'm assuming. Ah, shade. Look. Thanks, Catherine. So now we have the second stretch. Back in the Middle Ages, this was one of the main entry points into the chateau. There would have been a drawbridge up there, and the stairs were added later. I think this is quite spectacular. Look at the ivy on this wall. And that's the chateau you see in the background there. We're gonna get closer. I'm pacing myself to go up. Blois is not a very manageable city if you have a hard time with stairs. As a heads up. Yeah, these are the shorter stairs. You'll see the long ones later. So if you don't like stairs, just to get to the rose garden where I took you earlier on Facebook, there was a lot of climbing involved. So if you rent something in Blois, an apartment, or make sure to find out where it is exactly. Voila. Look at this brick wall. We are on the side of the chateau right now. And the animal you see up there, I'm going to show you. There's a spot where we can see it a little better. You're right, it is a beautiful day. We're having a great weekend in the Touraine, in the Loire Valley. So normally I would be arriving from the other side to show you the chateau instead of having it in my back like I have now, like I am doing now. But I figured the stairs would be easier that way. So we are on the Esplanade, the plaza outside the chateau. You haven't seen it yet because it's right standing in my back. The house in front of us, I showed you on Instagram this morning, and I'll go back to it. But for now, even if the sun's facing us, here is the mighty Chateau de Blois. Bit of a patchwork of architectural styles. Before the kings of France ruled this area, there were powerful regional lords, and you've heard the story in many other French regions. Here in Blois, we had the Comte de Blois, the Counts of Blois, and they built the first medieval fortress here in the 10th century. There isn't much left of the medieval fortress, except maybe that section on the right-hand side here that dates back to the 13th century. But after that, The Loire Valley really became known during the Renaissance. This is the time, late 15th through the late 16th century, when French kings really made their homes in the plural, since they traveled around so much. But this is really when a lot of them settled down in this area. And there was a dynasty of French kings in particular known as the Valois, V-A-L-O-I-S. And a lot of the names that you've heard if you visited this chateau or the Chateau de Chambord or other chateaux in the area, kings like Louis XII, his successor Francis I, François Ier, and then François' son, Henri II, the one who was married to Mary de Medici, and then their three sons who ruled. So the gentleman you see up there is actually Louis XII. He is the king who ruled France from the late 15th century to the early 16th. His totem animal, you know, kings had totem animals, was the porcupine. And this is what you see here. So as you go around the Loire Valley, you'll see some porcupines, but here in particular, there's one above the main entrance as well. And before I go on, let's check this out. Look at how nice these horses are. We're just getting ready. You see, tourism has started. Most of these people are French, from what I can hear or overhear. Things are about to change. As you know, France is reopening its borders to international travelers in a few days. And I know some of you are anxious to return. So the styles, this is interesting. I said on the right-hand side over there is probably the oldest part of the chateau. But then by the time Louis XII arrived, he made it one of his main residences. And so he built this whole wing, and in the Gothic style. Remember, this was the late 15th century, so the brick and the stone, and you can see that it is Gothic. It's a massive wing. And then his successor, Francis I, François Ier, builds a second wing, and we're going to take a peek at it through this door on the right-hand side. And then later, another royal builds his own as well. It's kind of nice to go under here, right below the feet of Louis XII's horse. We are entering the chateau. We won't go very far because I haven't made reservations to be able to visit it again. But I want to show you what Francis I did. So the way this is organized on the left is the continuation of the Gothic wing dating back to Louis XII. And then on the right-hand side is the Renaissance style Francis I designed. You remember he's the one who commissioned the beautiful Chateau de Chambord, and you can see the Italian influence, pure Renaissance style with this beautiful staircase here. And then the third section, which faces us right here, is pure neoclassical style, and it was designed by François Mansart much, much, much later for Louis XIII's brother, who lived here and decided to redesign parts of the chateau. So you kind of have, like I said, bonjour, il n'y a pas de problème, monsieur. You kind of have all this patchwork of architectural styles, late 15th, early 16th, 16th century, and then 17th century. It's a beautiful chateau. The Museum of Fine Arts of the city of Blois is inside here. There's a little chapel left. That's all that's left of the church that was here. And it takes a while to visit it because you go through several floors. But if you've heard of the powerful, mighty Queen Catherine de Medici, this is the chateau where she died. And many, many kings and queens lived here, as well as their children. When I was here with Rick Steves Europe's tour groups 2 years ago, I saw an exhibit here called The Children of the Renaissance. It was fascinating. And I started seeing the chateau not only as a place where royals lived, but also where families lived, or kids at least, because very often the parents wouldn't spend a lot of time with their children. And Catherine de Medici in particular, she was well known for having portraits of her children drawn on a regular basis so she could see them grow up. She had 10, and she wasn't with them all the time. It's one of the most imposing chateaus inside the city in the Loire Valley. So if you ever get a chance to come to Blois, you should visit it. Inside, in season, we have a beautiful light and sound show right inside that courtyard I just showed you. And the show tells you the story of the city of Blois and the kings who lived here. So you can also do that after 10 p.m. usually when it finally gets dark. The TI is right there on the left, so you can start here and pick up a map and some information. And this is a manufacturer. You know the name of these traditional factories that would make beautiful things for French kings from the 17th century, the 18th century. This is a manufacturer that's been in town since on the door it says, above the door it says 1865. And the gentleman's name is Langlois. It's been in different locations in the city. This is not the location anymore, but they basically specialize in renovating, refurbishing tapestries. So as you can imagine, they have a lot of work around here. So this is a very traditional business. La manufacture de tapisserie Langlois. I will step back so you can have a view of the chateau, though the sun's facing us. It gets really hot here in the summer sometimes. Remember sitting in the shade of those trees over there with poor tour members who were exhausted after doing an orientation tour of the city. If I step back a little, you'll see the chateau, or some of it at least, since everything is in the back really. But that gives you a good idea of the different styles. The Louis XII wing, Francis I, which sits in the back in the courtyard, in the original parts of the original medieval structure. So quite an impressive sight, especially if you walk around the chateau. You can see a lot by just walking around it too, in the streets below. The house I'm walking towards here is, if you were on Instagram with me earlier today, you've seen what it was. It is the House of Magic. It's a local museum. And if you're interested in magic, you want to visit this museum. It's very interesting. But it's really dedicated to a gentleman who is credited for inventing modern magic in the 19th century. That's his statue right here in front of me, so I'm going to get closer so you can see him. Those people are coming out of the museum. His name was Jean-Eugène Robert Houdin. You see, he was born here in Blois in 1805 and died in 1871. And he's credited for being a prestidigitateur, horloger, clockmaker, mécanicien, mechanic, inventeur, inventor, savant, scientist, ambassador, and homme de lettres, intellectual as well. So he had many talents, clearly, but what he did was magic, until he came along, was something that people enjoyed at fairgrounds, working classes, and he was really into it. And so what he did is he bought a theater in Paris and started creating those beautiful shows that you see today, where the magician is dressed to the nines, and turned it into a really elegant affair that everybody enjoyed. Now you may recognize his name because of Houdini. Houdini was a famous American magician born in Hungary, and Houdini was younger than he was. He was born about 70 years after him, and Houdini basically borrowed the name Houdini as a tribute to Monsieur Houdin. At least I hope it was a tribute. Now about the dragons, somebody just asked in the comments. This morning we were here on Instagram Live, and the dragons came out, which is a little bit corny, but at the same time quite fun. We have a bunch of windows that open and giant dragons come out and make all sorts of fun sounds. The dragons come out, I wonder if it's every hour on the hour or every 30 minutes. I'm not sure. So right now it's about 10 minutes away. I don't the windows are closed, so I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, but I can see them behind the windows. If you want to see what they look like, go on my Instagram account and you will see the video. They gave us a really nice show this morning. So this is a very peaceful little square. In the summer when the tourists roll in, it gets really, really busy. People coming in and out of the chateau, the restaurants. Quite the lively scene. Now the reason to talk about magic too is that in the Renaissance, some people were really interested in magic, and even in the Middle Ages, of course, but Queen Catherine de Medici was famous for it. She was really into the dark arts and magic. So there is a connection here. More stairs, and these are the degrés. You see the name? Grand Degrés du Château. These were the stairs I was supposed to take to come up here. I've done it with tour members before, very slowly. So I thought it was preferable to do it on the other side, but I'm going to go down them now. Right towards that section at the back was in fact a parish church and a cemetery, so it's changed a lot. And early on they had those stairs here that used to be wider and longer and crisscrossed outside the chateau. But that's all that's left of them now. I mean, that's quite a bit. Those stairs are pretty big as they are. So I'll be careful as I go down. Well, so it'll take a trip to several of my social media channels to see everything I've filmed in Blois so far. The House of Magic and the Dragons on Instagram. And then a few hours later, the beautiful rose garden by the cathedral, Facebook Live. And then Facebook and I had a fight and I decided to bring this third live event to YouTube last minute. So, I apologize if it's a little complicated. Lots and lots and lots of stairs. Yes, I've had a very busy day and I took the train from Tours to Blois, which is about a 40-minute trip. And I'll do that again around 6:30 p.m. today to get home to Tours. The trip is not too expensive. It's 12 euros one way in a local train or regional train. It was a very old train. Big change for me from the TGV I typically ride. So we have a pedestrian-only area that goes to the left here, and on the right, one of the nice squares in this town. So I'm going to try and show it to you. The market that's set up this morning is still here. They sell old books and old DVDs and old CDs as well. And then even though it's, what time is it? It's 4-something p.m. A lot of people are still sitting outside enjoying late lunch. We've been deprived of our restaurants for so long. People are really making up for lost time now, especially on such a pretty day. So there's a whole area out there. Rue du Commerce is a street that is lined with shops. Street of the Commerce, that makes sense. So quite a few things to explore in that section if you come back or if you come here for the first time. And this is the square I was telling you about. It's named after Louis XII, the king who loved the porcupine or porcupines. And this square has been here. It's changed over time quite a bit. But there is one piece of it, one part of it, that's been here since almost since the Middle Ages, actually. And it is that fountain ahead of us. So here are more restaurants on the right-hand side. Here, let's walk across this way, then I'll show you the fountain. So we started in that little street you see over there, basically. And then we went up and around and came back here. We did a loop. So these guys set up shop this morning. He has some nice used books here. I like looking at books, don't you? I'm not showing you the DVDs on the left. You can see a lot of books are local books. I'm not sure how the kings chose their totem animal. I think each animal has a significance and is supposed to represent royal power. The king, who is credited for creating the absolute monarchy, we often refer to as, Louis XIV, the Sun King, as an absolute monarch. But well before that, there was Francis I. And his animal was the salamander. Louis XII was the porcupine. So they came, each of these animals are symbols, come loaded with symbols in terms of the king's power. I think that's how they chose them. I'm sure you could find many more details about that. So over there is the medieval section. In fact, the rose garden where we were earlier is in that direction, but it's way up above the town. And this is the part that is quite ancient on this square, this beautiful fountain. Louis XII, him again, late 15th, early 16th century, decided to bring more water to the city, try and improve things for the city. So they had fountains erected, and this one replaced an old medieval fountain. So you can say that this fountain has actually been here since the late 15th, early 16th century, which is amazing. And you can see some statues are likely missing here and here and here, but you can also see the coat of arms of the city of Blois right there. So it looked very different back in the day. There were buildings that came very close in the back of the fountain, and this poor square has been through a lot. Early 19th century, they did some work and expanded on it. And then, of course, Tours was, I told you about Tours suffering in 1940 during World War II. And the same thing happened to Blois. If you look at these buildings, they're kind of nondescript buildings here. They look like those reconstruction buildings in Tours that they had to erect very quickly after World War II to be able to house the population. And it's a miracle the fountain is still here, because this whole area was bombed and burned down because of the Germans' incendiary bombs in 1940. And you can kind of see from the style of the building what happened, where the fire was. You see? So that's quite a different look from the streets, the medieval streets we've been through earlier. So I'm going to take you to a little square that's over there, and then I'll be saying goodbye for now, because what I'd like to do is take club members on a stroll, another stroll of that medieval center and a little square I really enjoy there. I think I'll go this way. So thanks for joining me today, in spite of all the last-minute surprises and a few tech issues. Ah, you're welcome. You're welcome. I know many people will be watching the replay. It's always tricky because I have a lot of followers who live on the west coast of the United States, and when I live stream this early, they're still sleeping. So they have to catch the replay. But for a day trip like this, I cannot live stream too late. And at least I can catch some of my Aussie or Kiwi viewers, which is nice. I'll do a couple of live streams in Tours over the next few weeks, and these I can do later since I live in town, it's easier. Look at the cathedral up there, do you see her? Saint Louis Cathedral. So when we did the Rose Garden on Facebook earlier, we were standing right behind that, so you see how much higher it is? I wasn't kidding when I told you there's a lot of climbing involved. Let's try not to get run over here. Merci, merci. Look, the Loire River is right there. You see the bridge? We saw the Loire really well from up there, from the Rose Garden earlier. We have quite a few restaurants here, but again, it seems very quiet because it's Sunday and it's the middle of the afternoon. But I can see that these guys, the pub, was closed earlier and they're opening for the evening. And if you come in town, this restaurant over there, Poivre et Sel, Pepper and Salt, is actually a good one. I've had lunch a couple times there, or dinner, it was dinner. And when you head in this direction where I'm going now, you go back to I think it's a little less touristy. You see a lot more locals here, especially in the back streets. Really pretty little medieval streets. Former hôtel particulier, private mansions, dating back to the late 15th century or 16th century too. And quite a lot to see in those back streets. It's starting to get very lively. En terrasse. Hey, bonjour Jeanne, you just showed up. We're about to wrap up the stroll actually, but you can catch the replay. And I wanted to wrap up in front of this beautiful house because I love it. Look, if this isn't a gorgeous sight, you have this beautiful house, late 15th century, and then you have the cathedral on the left and all these medieval streets that continue. So thanks for joining me in Blois today. I am going to continue this a little later. I am a tour guide and I have a virtual tip jar. On PayPal, I will add all the information in the video notes when it's uploaded on YouTube. And all donations are gratefully accepted. They go towards the cost of making these tours. But I'm mostly happy that you're here with me today. And I hope to see you again soon in Blois, in Tours, or next weekend in Paris, actually. I'll be back in Paris next weekend. There we go. Last peek at Blois without getting run over.